Ever since I started my channel back in 2012, we've had either drought, too much rain. Last year was too cold, 3 or 4 days every week from about the middle of July all the way up to October. And we had early frost on the 26th of October. Normally it's about the third week of November, and I think the first year I had garden videos, I pulled my tomato plants on the 8th of December, which was their first frost. I've been praying for a good year, and this is a good year on tomatoes at least. They've all reached the top of the pole. They're starting to hang over. I took some jute cloth string like this, and I locked it down on every single pole and knotted it at every pole. I pulled some of these behind it as I tied it, and now I can guide these tomatoes to this jute string, something to tie them with. See, now this one won't fall over, and I can get it to go over to that pole and over to the next pole. I can pull these up to the string, but you can see they're loaded. We picked them yesterday, and you can see all the tomatoes. We'll come down here on this one that I think will be a big producer. Give you a different perspective on tomato plants. Now here we are up in the top. Look at all these flowers, folks. It's tons of flowers. I'll give you a different perspective on the tops of the tomato plants. Looking down at the garden, you can see all these flowers. Now this is just one stem. They all have all these flowers on them. Now when you look at this, I usually just walk this thing off because my drip irrigation is about every 3 feet on the main header. And I got this row of Sweet Millions a little too close to this row of Better Boys, which will shade Better Boys a little bit. But my biggest problem is walking through this thing. We can survive it. Under a normal year, that probably would have been okay. But you can see how tight it is down there, just because the row is a little closer together. Of course, the Sweet Millions do grow. They don't call them millions for nothing, because they do produce a lot. My Better Boys have set fruit. They didn't set many on the bottom. We really haven't picked too many tomatoes off of this. But this plant right there has 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 tomatoes on it. And it won't frost till late October, late November. And here's the next plant to it. It's not as tall. You see, I need to get all these up, and I could probably just put that behind that and hook it on. And see, I could bring that one around. Might have to have a little string to tie it up with. Right now we're picking about 400 cherry tomatoes every 2 to 3 days off of these. I picked these yesterday, and I just left these weren't quite red. You see, they're a little bit orange, and then they turn slowly until they get a deep red. Here's another just average plant. If you look it up in there to see all the grains, see this sprig? That's one sprig. All the flowers and all the tomatoes. And you can see from here that they need to be supported because I've gotten to the top of the pole, and I can just take that with one of my ties and bring that one over, or you can bring one behind it over. This is so heavy I'd have to bring them over individually, but then I've got them over toward the center, and then I can keep them tied to this string. And the secret is, if this gets heavy with fruit, it'll bend over and bend this right in half. It won't snap it in half, but it'll bend it in half, and maybe past half, and that'll pretty much kill everything above it. Where if you get it on a bit of an arc, see, we tied it there, we tied the main leader up there, and we want this little arc in it. So now when I bring this over, see, it's just going to keep growing, and it'll keep on growing down through here. You might say that's a lot of trouble to tie all this stuff up. Here's a prime example of where it's weighted and how we can just rotate this around. And since we give it all away, most of it away, especially cherries, but I can put them right on a table and they'll be gone pretty quick. But see, that's just a perfect little arch, no damage. Plant doesn't know it, it'll keep growing that way. When your peppers, these haven't been tied up yet, and we use these little nylon strings I keep tied on my shirt button. It's just handy, I can just pull one off as I need it. And a pepper is a real tender plant. You can look at them and they'll snap in half. And when you get the weight of peppers on them, they will snap and break the main stems. So we're gonna have to tie these stems up. This is a hot pepper, which we don't usually grow. And for some reason, this is a shaded part of the garden. But see, this end has got fairly large peppers on it for the small size of the plant. But once some peppers form up here and weight it over, it will break it off. So you just need to pull this over to this stake and tie it off, and it will support the whole plant. Now this area has been wet. You can still see the soil is damp. We haven't had too much rain, but we've had just enough that I can't plow it. And the squash plants, we'll leave the ones in there that are still producing and healthy. Most of the others we'll just replant in position with seeds. Of course, now is the third weekend of July, and if something takes 2 months, 60 days to produce, you're looking at September. But it's still worth the planting. This morning, it's Thursday the 23rd of July. I got out here about 5 minutes to 9, and I've put this thing up, and I see where I've tied these over so they're all arcing over, so they'll keep growing that direction. I pulled these into the plant. They were out here. This was a plant that was stunted, and it's actually a 4th of July. We have 11 sweet millions on this row. And at the end, see, these are going both directions. At the end, everything was going that way, so I'm bringing it all back this way. I know this is into the sun, but it was the only way for me to really do this. And it's made this a little more open down through the center. Just a little.